The Stan Major Show continues on WINZ. If you'd like to participate on today's program, you can call Stan on 624-9400 in Dade or 524-9400 in Broward. And now, here again, Stan Major.
All right, we never have guests on this show, ladies and gentlemen, but when this fellow talked to me on the air a couple of times, called me, I invited him to come in. I invited him to send me a resume. And I was thinking about, well, it'd be nice to have him on because he's a private investigator and he knows a lot of the tricks of the trade. In fact, he is probably one of the real authorities on all of the very sophisticated technical things that can be used for spying and for snooping on you today. But then he sent me the resume and it just knocked me off my feet because I found out that he's a former SAS, Special Air Services, the Royal British Forces, which is the Counterterrorism Task Force, and I'm enough into British spies and stuff like that I know what the SAS is, I know what they do, I know how they're trained, vaguely, and I said, wow. Then I called you and I said, you got to come on and talk about that. You said, I'm not going to talk about that. And I said, sure you will. You'll talk about it a little bit. But Peter McDermott is here, and he's had a whole bunch of death threats since I announced that he was going to come on the show, because a lot of people thought he was going to come on and pound away at the British occupation of Northern Ireland. We're not going to talk about that. I don't care about that. That's your problem. That's not my problem. I could care less about Northern Ireland, so take Northern Ireland and shove it. Anyhow, how much can we discuss the SAS? I'm fascinated by some of the things that the BBC has done, some of the series that they've done, which have showed various aspects of the SAS. There have been several movies out which have showed certain aspects of the training. Have you seen any of these? Do they nail it as to how well you people are trained, or is it Hollywood?
I think a lot of it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
No, I don't really think it's very true to life, in actual fact.
But it is pretty rigorous training, isn't it? How does one get into it, first of all?
Well, first of all, you have to retire from another regiment. Say, for instance, you were with the Paras or Marines or whatever.
Yeah.
You would have to leave that department and then rejoin with SAS.
Are you invited to join SAS?
Sometimes you're invited, sometimes you can apply.
In other words, if you have special qualities, is it like, the CIA tapping into the Green Berets and things like that?
Yeah, basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is an American force. Is it called the Delta Force?
There's Delta Force and, of course, the Navy SEALs, who pretty much do the same sort of thing.
But they don't have the image that the SAS does. I wonder why.
Probably because the SAS has been around a lot longer than those units. I mean, Delta's fairly new. The SEALs don't get an awful lot of publicity, and they like it that way.
Yeah.
SAS is always bathed in the limelight of publicity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're any better or worse than each other. I think they all do pretty much the same job.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, let's play a little game, Peter. Now, don't be prejudiced. Be open-minded on this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say an airliner is hijacked by Arab terrorists.
Uh-huh.
And you have your choice of any force to deal with that.
SAS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, yeah.
Why?
Well, because...
Even over the Israelis?
Well, the Israelis do have tremendous capabilities. No, I wouldn't say over the Israelis. I would put them pretty much on a par.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelis are very good at what they do. In fact, they're probably one of the very best units in the world. Their training is extremely intensive, as the SAS is.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would put the Israelis in the same basket as SAS, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, why didn't Ronald Reagan pick up the phone and call whoever was the Prime Minister of Israel after the TWA plane was hijacked on the ground in Beirut or wherever it was,
well, it's
and
hearsay.
Say, help?
It's hearsay, of course, but I have heard that offers were made for assistance in several of our hostage situations, and they weren't taken up on it. But That's purely hearsay. I have no proof to back that up.
Don't you think it's a little ridiculous that we're so concerned about our image that we'd refuse help from somebody like the Israelis who are, 30 minutes away?
Yes.
Pretty stupid.
It's disturbing. It's disturbing. But the image of the United States has taken a bashing over the last few years, and
that's it. I mean, what have we got to lose?
I think particularly on the Iran hostage situation, we could have done rather well on that deal.
You're talking about the embassy takeover?
Yeah.
You think the SAS could have?
I'm sure we could have got them out.
Why aren't we seeing any terrorist activities right now? What's going on in the world? Nothing's happening.
I think everybody's scared to death.
It's just the thing, on the West Bank, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing really going on.
Well, there are things going on, but it's far more subdued than it usually is.
Yeah. How do you keep up on these things? I mean, obviously you read the newspapers, but do you have other sources of information?
Well, usually the newspapers are sources of disinformation. I've had situations where I've actually been in so-called hotspots, and a few hours later been back in the United States, and
which leads me to my next question. A lot of people who don't know anything about the SAS say, "Oh, that's the British version of the CIA," which is not really true.
No, MI6 is the British version of CIA.
That's the one with all the red spies in it all the time.
Well, those are the ones that play the games. Yeah.
Had to take that little knock, okay?
Yeah.
Listen, the SAS is actually military. That's the difference. CIA is basically not military. CIA is civilian.
Well, the CIA is basically, I think they use a lot of military personnel.
Yeah, they do draw upon military personnel.
A lot.
Yeah.
And obviously the operations that they perform, most times successfully, are of a military type gender. But there are a lot of civilians in the CIA who have expertise in different areas. They're very segmented, the CIA, I've noticed.
Let's get back to the basic facts about the SAS. One is, somebody wants to become a member of the SAS. Do they walk up to their commanding officer and say, "Hey, gee, I like the regiment, but I want to move up in the world"?
Well, it's not really moving up. You don't get any more money. SAS, you work 10 times harder. But you have to admit there's a certain prestige here. A personal prestige, yes.
Yeah.
But obviously when you're actually with SAS, nobody knows you're with SAS, so you can't bathe in the limelight personally.
Right. And why does one leave? Are they burnt out?
You do get a certain degree of burnout, yes. You get scared in the end. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you start to get the shakes and stuff like that. And,
now, you told me that there were several former SAS members that live in South Florida.
Yeah.
Why do they come over here? Why do you retire over here?
Because this is a better place to make a living. I mean, people in our business in England, it's very, very hard to make a living. And unfortunately, we're stuck in a rut. We know very little about normal, everyday type living. And this country provides an opportunity for us to continue in the type of work we're used to doing.
Which brings me to my next question. I was once told by an ex-CIA agent that you can retire from the CIA, but you never really leave it.
This is
true. The phone can ring at any minute.
This is true.
Same thing with SAS?
Yeah, we have a thing in England called the Official Secrets Act, which we all have to sign when we partake in Her Majesty's service. And any violation of the Official Secrets Act down the road can cause you severe problems. You do get called on occasionally to take care of a problem here and there, all of us. But it's...
Now, who would call on you? Would it be one of the, what is it, MI5 or MI6? Which is the domestic?
The domestic is MI5.
So the MI6?
MI6, yes. Not necessarily them calling you. Can we get off this area?
No, yeah, sure we can. I know it makes you nervous talking about it. That's fine. I understand that. If I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, just say
various people call you from various different agencies.
Would the CIA, for instance, utilize any of the SAS people in South Florida?
I don't know. I assume they would, but I don't know.
Yeah, folks, come on now. He doesn't have to answer that question. The image that the SAS has, that is portrayed on television and everything, is here's a crack force that is at the ready at any given moment on very short notice to do almost anything.
Yeah, we're basically 45-minute response team.
A 45-minute response team for even things outside of Great Britain?
Anywhere.
So if Reagan or if Carter had picked up the phone and said, "We need your help in Tehran," within 45 minutes you could have been on a plane on your way?
Yes. Yeah, we would have been there within 3 or 4 hours.
That's pretty incredible. The one thing I find disturbing is that I can't understand why our Delta Force is based in the United States. The United States is probably the farthest well, maybe Australia would be a little farther, but the U.S., continental U.S. is probably the farthest place from any hostage or terrorist situation that's going to happen. Why would the American military choose to base them here in the Carolina or wherever they are, when it would be logical that they should be based someplace in the Middle East?
Maybe they're not based here.
All right, I'll accept that. Maybe the media, gives us this information that they are based there and that they're on their way. For instance, after the TWA hijacking, the media immediately jumped on the fact that it was reported that the Delta Force was leaving its home base of wherever it is in Carolina, and en route to the Greek islands or something, or Cyprus.
I feel fairly confident that if I was in the hierarchy of Delta Force, I would have my bases covered pretty much everywhere by intelligence units, and I would use my force here in the United States as a backup. I think first strike capability is already in place. Has to be for it to be a sensible and viable proposition.
What else can you tell us about the SAS? Just basically about the training. We're not interested in top secret stuff. How long is the training? How long does it go on? How rigorous?
It varies. It's continuous while you're in there. I mean, it never
Is there
stops.
any kind of like a basic thing that you go through when you first go into it? How long does that take? Does that take months?
Well,
years?
the first thing to do is try to break you down.
Yeah.
With typical military programming.
Yeah.
And
everything you went through in your regular military is totally eclipsed by what they do. It's like,
Well, yes, I used to think that was tough training until I got to SAS and found out what real tough training really was.
Yeah.
They literally make you cry.
How many guys drop out?
About 85%.
Incredible. What do they teach you to do, generally?
Well, a lot of it is physical stuff, of course. You wouldn't know it to look at me these days, but...
I think you could probably handle yourself all right.
If
you had to.
I keep a little friend with me.
Mm.
But a lot of it is very intensive physical training.
Yeah. Then do you get to choose a particular aspect, a particular field that you want to...
No, you don't get to choose anything.
They tell you?
They tell you everything,
Okay.
yeah. Although we are a force that is are made up of independent thinkers, we are, in other words, if we have a unit with a commander and NCOs, and the commander and the NCOs were wiped out for some reason, anyone in the unit could take over the
You're
unit.
not robots.
We're not robots.
You're not
no.
yes men.
We're
You
capable
think.
of independent thought, yeah. If half the team got wiped out, then...
That's why
the other
you
half
say
would...
that within 45 minutes you could have been on a plane to, or the SAS could have been on a plane headed toward Tehran, and could have dealt with the situation upon arrival, rather than doing what the Israelis did, and that is training for 1 or 2 days before they hit Idi Amin.
Well, of course, we don't know what the facts of the situation were for real.
Yeah.
And I suppose...
Wait, let me ask. I think you can probably answer this without getting into trouble. Was the SAS probably going ahead with some kind of preliminary plan in
I'm
case
sure they had
were
a
called
contingency
upon?
set up, yeah. I'm sure there were contingency plans set
Yeah.
up. Because American security without saying, goes to British security
Yeah.
also. I mean, we're two in the same, basically.
I would assume that one of the things that you train to do is to recapture a British embassy. I mean, it would be logical.
Well, yes, we've done a lot of training in that area.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've used that training on a couple of occasions.
Successfully?
Successfully, yeah.
How did you like what the Russians did in Beirut when a couple of their people were kidnapped? I've never been able to nail that story down. I heard that a couple of Russian diplomats, or Russian citizens, Soviet citizens in Beirut, were taken hostage by some of those kooky people over there.
Islamic Jihad, you mean?
Yeah, and then the Soviets turned around and grabbed a couple of them, chopped off their fingers, chopped off their testicles, and dumped them on somebody's doorstep, and immediately that ended any more hostage-taking of Soviet citizens in Beirut.
Well, my personal view is I'm a great believer in affirmative action. American forces are a little different.
Of course, we have the New York Times and the Washington Post we have to put up with.
Yeah.
We could never do anything like that. We have to wear this stupid white hat all the time.
Yeah, well, my personal view on terrorists is...
That's why some puppet like some idiot like Fidel Castro can kick our butt around all the time, or Ortega.
Well, if Mr. Castro wasn't tolerable, he wouldn't be there.
Well, that's another thing we can talk about. But getting back to this, what is your information on what actually happened with regard to the Soviet citizens?
I don't know.
Would you believe this story, the basic thing?
Yes, the Soviets they tend to deal very directly with the problem.
Peter McDermott is my guest. He's former SAS, or he's still SAS, who knows. We're going to take a break on the Stan Major program, and we'll be back a little later. We'll let you talk to him if you'd like to. We're not discussing Ireland. Ireland is your problem, friends, not ours. We'll take a break on the Major program, be back on Winds.